Hello, everyone. I'm Leslie Rohde, and this is another edition of Ask the Lawyers. Today's topic, motorcycle accidents. What bikers need to know before an accident occurs, and also how to protect themselves, what to do if they're hit by a car while riding. Our guest today is attorney Greg Herrman. He's with the law firm Herrman Herrman. The main office is there in Corpus Christi, but he also has offices in McAllen, San Antonio, and Brownsville. Welcome, Greg.
Thank you, Leslie. Glad to be here.
Well, just first of all, set the stage for us. How big of a problem are motorcycle accidents there in Corpus Christi and in Texas?
It's a huge problem. People lots of times just don't see motorcyclists, and or they get in a blind spot, or they're just not paying attention, or whatever. But when you have a motorcycle accident, very seldom are the drivers, the motorcycle riders, very seldom is it minor to them. They're usually hurt pretty severely. So it's a huge problem, and it's it's kind of year round in Texas because of our weather.
I can imagine. Well, who is generally at fault in these accidents?
Most of the time it's the other driver. Usually the motorcyclist is paying attention. He knows what he's doing, but it's usually the other driver, the other adverse, either a truck or car or whoever. But it's usually somebody else besides the motorcyclist.
And tell us why that fault matters.
Well, it's huge because, and I'll tell you, there is one big issue in Texas, and that is that the DPS, Department of Public Safety, wants to try to blame the motorcyclists for everything. They just, I guess, have a grudge against motorcyclists, but they try to put a lot of fault on the motorcyclists. But the way it works is, let's say you've got $100,000 worth of damages. If the jury decides that you're 20% at fault, you the motorcyclist, you're 20% at fault, you lose 20% of your damages. So instead of getting your 100,000, now you're down to 80. If you're 50% at fault, now you're down to 50,000. But what's really bad as far as comparative fault in Texas is, if you're 51% or more, you get zero. So let's say a jury decides a motorcyclist was 51% at fault. He still got all his 100,000 or more in damages, but he doesn't recover a penny. So if you're more than 50% at fault, you get zero. You'd think you'd get 49, but you don't. So anyway, fault is huge.
I can see that there. So if a motorcyclist is riding, say in some other part of the state, or comes into Texas from another state and gets into an accident here, do you have any advice on where that person should get a lawyer? Should they get a lawyer here in Texas or somewhere else?
Yeah, no, you always get a lawyer in the place where the accident happened, because A, that's where the witness was going to be. 2, that's probably where the medical was incurred. But 3, that's probably where a lawsuit's going to be filed. And 4, you want a lawyer that knows what the law is in that state. So, yeah, if you're coming down to Texas from Oklahoma or Kansas or wherever, then yeah, you would hire a Texas lawyer.
Be ready to get one there in Texas. Can you tell us some examples? I know you have a lot of experience in dealing with motorcycle accidents. Can you tell us some examples of some common accidents you see?
Well, like I said, a lot of times it's people just don't see motorcyclists, and sometimes that's because the motorcyclist is in the blind spot of people's vehicle. But lots of times it's mainly just the average public is just not looking for motorcyclists, and they just don't see them. That you should always look twice, but lots of times they just do one quick glance and they don't see a motorcyclist. So a motorcyclist will be going down the road and they'll just switch lanes and cut right in front of them, or they'll just turn right in front of them, or they'll just pull right out in traffic and not see the motorcyclist. And so those are usually the most common type, is they just don't see them for whatever reason, and it's usually because they're not paying attention.
Yeah. We all have to have insurance for our cars. What about motorcyclists? What kind of insurance should they be looking at getting?
Well, the obvious one is they ought to have health insurance to begin with. The problem is there's a lot of plans specifically exclude automobile accidents or motorcycle accidents. So, you've got Humana or you got United Healthcare. Most people are shocked to learn this, but they're going to exclude you if you're in a car accident or motorcycle accident. So you've got to have some other kind of coverage. So the best kind would probably be personal injury protection, or PIP, because that's no fault. in Texas. So it doesn't matter whether it's your fault or the other guy's fault. You've got personal injury protection, and so you probably ought to have a minimum of $50,000 worth just to cover medical, and I'd suggest 100,000 or more. But the other thing that's really important is uninsured motorist coverage, and what that does is says, okay, it's probably going to be the other side's fault, and they're probably not going to have a lot of insurance. They're probably going to have a minimum policy of $30,000. Well, if you spend one night in the hospital, you're already over $30,000. And a lot of the cases that come into us, these motorcycle riders have 100,000 in medical, 200,000, 300,000 in medical, and the person that caused the accident has a $30,000 policy. So you should just protect yourself, get your own coverage of what's called uninsured or underinsured motorists, and insure yourself for, again, I'd say minimum 100,000, but to be smart, you probably ought to do $500,000 or even $1 million, because if it's a serious accident and you're a motorcyclist without any protection at all other than your helmet, you could easily hit $1 million just in medical. And so that's before you even get to lost wages, loss of physical capacity, loss of earning capacity in the future. There's so many more damages that you want covered than just your medical bills.
And you probably don't think about those.
And you don't really think about those. And yeah, it costs a little bit more. And so a lot of people say, I don't want to pay more for insurance. I'm trying to get as cheap as I can. It really doesn't cost that much more. But when you don't have it, again, you could have $1 million worth of damages, and all there is to collect is $30,000. So, the smart thing to do if you're going to ride a motorcycle is get as much coverage as you can possibly get, especially the uninsured and underinsured motorists and the PIP.
I see a lot of riders here, Greg, riding with someone on the back. I live out in the Texas Hill Country, so they'll be touring the Texas Hill Country, and there'll be someone, two people, a passenger on the motorcycle. What about that person? Is that rider protected under the insurance, the type of insurance that you described?
Sure. So let's say you're on the back of a motorcycle and the driver, the rider, is at fault. Well, then you can collect against his liability. And if he's got PIP, you can collect against his PIP. You can also collect your own PIP on your own vehicle if you've got a separate vehicle. But also then let's say it's not his fault, but some car just pulls out in front of you and you T-bone it and there's a big accident. Then the same rules kind of apply as you're the rider. You can collect from that guy's policy that pulled in front of you. But again, it's probably only going to be a minimum policy of $30,000. And usually in these type accidents, your medical bill is more than $30,000. So again, you can collect on the rider's UM policy, but you should always have your own UM policy and your own PIPs. You can collect against those too. So you should have all those, just like you're the rider of the motorcycle. You should have the same coverages that he has, and have them on your own motorcycle or your own vehicle, because you can go after those also.
Greg, any last bits of information that we may have left out that you feel like motorcyclists really need to think about before they hit the road and think about riding?
Mainly just be careful and realize that most people are not looking for motorcycles coming out. Some people don't care and they just look or don't look. And I think everybody knows this, which is probably stay out of people's blind spots. Make sure you're either right next to him where the driver of the vehicle can turn over and look right at you, or make sure you're plenty far behind where if he switches lanes on you, you'll have time to react. But just keep in mind that people are not looking for you, and you're easy to overlook lots of times. And since people are just doing quick looks and they're not doing double takes or, staring at an area, it's just real easy for them not to see you. So just keep that in mind before you get out there.
And I would imagine if you do get in an accident on a motorcycle, then finding someone like yourself who has the experience in these cases would be really important.
Yes, I would think so. You probably don't want to hire a real inexperienced lawyer.
Okay, Greg, thank you very much. Greg Herrman with the law firm Herrman Herrman in Corpus Christi. We appreciate you giving our viewers all of this information.
Sure. Thank you, Leslie.
And we
Happy
thank
to-
all of you for watching here this edition of Ask the Lawyers. I want to make sure you remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel too so you don't miss an episode of Ask the Lawyers. I'm Leslie Rohde. Thanks for watching. This is AskTheLawyers.com where you can choose a lawyer that lawyers choose.